Come with me, I'll tell a story that you might have heard before. Graphically novel, but the same old trouble. Villains always knocking at the door. Pretty pictures on the page, but nothing ever stays the same.
Thank you, Vandello, and hello, true believers. My name is Josh Wasta, a.k.a. Fallout the Area, and welcome to another episode of Graphically Novel. And with me is my Magneto to Charles, my Saint of Killers to Jesse Custer.
The lactose in your cheese.
Ooh, that's fair. Today, we are going to discuss Preacher. This is a Garth Ennis book from the late 90s that is recently a show for FX. Hopefully, as we do here on Graphically Novel, if you like the show, we're going to take a little time to tell you about the graphic novel and hopefully get you reading.
And back into DC again.
Yes.
For not being a DC fan, we're doing a lot of DC stuff.
That's right. And actually, as we are recording this, Vertigo this week was canceled by DC.
They did such good stuff, though.
Yeah, so basically the best of DC has been canceled. We are going to talk about Preacher. The graphic novel that we're specifically talking about is the first book in all of Preacher, entitled Gone to Texas. Steve Dillon is the artist on it, and Garth Ennis, as I mentioned, is the writer. Garth Ennis has done a lot of other things. He did a long Punisher tour.
After reading this, I definitely want to read that Punisher bit.
Yeah, Garth Ennis is known, along with other people like Warren Ellis and a few others, that they get a little gritty. This book is a lot gritty. The show is actually surprisingly gritty.
The show really mirrors the level in the comic. It's different. The plot is a little bit different from what's in the comic. Honestly, I think they're a little more in-depth in the show. But I actually just want to take a second. I grabbed the graphic novel because I wanted to read off this section from the foreword, which was done by Joe R. Lansdale. And this was the part that made me go, okay, I'm ready to read this. He makes a couple of interesting metaphors. It's like watching an alligator eating a pig, which seems like a very southern metaphor. Up here, we'd say it's like watching a train wreck. You know, the thing that's obviously horrible, but you just can't take your eyes off of. The line that made me go, I might want to skip the rest of this intro and just jump straight into the novel, was this paragraph where he writes, "Another thing about Preacher, and I'm damn sure not giving anyone who has read it a newsflash, it's scary as a psychopathic greased gerbil with a miner's hat and a flashlight and your bare asshole in sight."
All right.
If that doesn't evoke some imagery for you, I don't know what will.
That is graphic.
Yeah, and the whole foreword is that as explicit in the foreword as they are in the novel, so it's a good primer for what you're about to get into.
Right, and as graphic as they get in the show, surprisingly, FX is... They don't pull a lot of punches, but man, this is probably one of the bloodiest shows.
Oh, definitely.
That they've had. Preacher is about a preacher, Jesse Custer, who comes into contact with some sort of supernatural entity, becomes involved in basically a battle between heaven and hell. With him is an ex-girlfriend who goes between hating his guts and wanting to jump him.
Yes.
At pretty much every turn. And one of the most fascinating characters in the series is Cassidy, who is a vampire.
And that's the one thing that I wish both the series and the comic did, was expand a little bit more on the rest of the world outside of these guys. So I'm like, where the heck did a vampire come from? Why did they exist? How did they start in this world? Like that, it's an interesting little piece of backstory that I just wish I had a little bit more of.
In both the show and the comic are intentionally vague.
Yes.
The world building is left a lot to your interpretation, which in a lot of ways makes it a lot like a religious text.
I'll give you that. Feel free to ad hoc as you will.
Well, let's jump into show versus comic. Now that you've read the comic, what were your first impressions of the actual comic book, other than the foreword, which you've already, once you got into?
They do tend to follow each other fairly well. There's a few story elements that they've changed. One of the side character's sons was, let's just call it a sporting rifle accident. They kind of changed the story around behind that a little bit. They actually get right into the meat and potatoes of what this power is in the comic more quickly than they do in the TV series, and I enjoyed that aspect. I actually think after, what are they on, 3 seasons now of Preacher, they haven't really fully explained what the power is, and they did that 20% of the way, like maybe one of the combined issues into the graphic novel. This is what this thing is. Isn't this cool? And I'm like, yeah, this is really cool. Why didn't they tell me this in the series?
It's interesting because the series, like we've said, it takes a lot more of this is open to your interpretation. You have to be a lot more willing to just accept that what happens in the show is what's happening. Bam, vampire pops up. Bam, he's got this power and we're not going to explain what it is. You get glimpses of the background between him and Tulip, his ex-girlfriend, and basically what their history is.
Yeah.
The comic gets to that a lot quicker too. You understand what their relationship is, why they act the way that they do. And since we're only talking about the first season of Preacher in this, I'm not 100% sure I got that by the end of the first season.
They didn't give you a whole lot on what was going on with Jesse and his girlfriend's backstory until season 2.
Right.
Most of season 2, there was a ton of their backstory there. I did like that they gave a little bit more of a background on Cassidy in season 1. His whole introduction in Preacher was hysterical.
Yeah, they took the opportunity to do a lot more with Cassidy. And Joseph Gilgan, who's the actor who plays him, just to the nines.
Oh,
and
yeah.
actually, for something that came out in the late 90s, they found an actor that dead spot on looks like the Cassidy in the comics.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
They did a really good job. And one of the things that you were mentioning is the kid who had the gun accident. We're not going to spoil a lot here, but it is caused by the apparent suicide of Kurt Cobain.
In the comic.
In the comic, which dates it. I mean, it really dates it at that point. For those of us that were in high school during that time, it harkens back to finding out Cobain had died. And in the comic, it is very much an element of its time.
Oh, definitely, yeah.
Another change between the comic and the TV show, I know it doesn't change the plot or the character that much, but there is an African-American playing Tulip instead of... In the comic, she's white girl.
Oh, she is 100% white girl in the comic. It can't get much whiter than that.
Yeah, Ruth Negga, who was also awesome in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., plays Tulip in this and rocks it. Just brings a level to it. And I've been waiting because every time we finish a graphic novel, you ask me off air what I thought of it. And I've been trying to hold off until we were recording to actually discuss any of this. I thought she was better as a supporting character. She had more to do and she was better in the show.
Oh, absolutely. I don't think they could have gotten a better character for her. Preacher, she's really just kind of an airhead, kind of a tag-along.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't even call her a supporting character in the series. Pretty much a lead in and of herself.
Demands that attention.
Absolutely.
In every scene that she's in. Like, she's a badass in the show. Talk about Dominic Cooper, who plays Jesse. Again, great job matching how he is in the comic with how he is in the show.
I don't think they could have done a better job if they would have gotten anybody else. Every word that comes out of his mouth, I swear he read the entire script, or read the entire graphic novel and was like, this is how I'm doing this.
Although a little more sympathetic in the show.
Yes.
I do not feel as, not sorry for him, that's the wrong expression, but I'm not quite as along for the ride with him in the comic as I am in the show.
It's much more of that Constantine feel in the comic.
Absolutely.
Where you're like, he's really kind of a prick. And I kind of like that he's a prick. Not really, I don't feel bad for you that you have this weird divine power that lashed itself onto you. In the TV series, he's kind of figuring it out. But I think part of that stems from how they switched the timeline around a little bit. Because in the graphic novel, probably about halfway through the first season in the series, timeline-wise, and they're going back and recapping how they got to this point.
So one of the other things, the glory of graphic novels is that you can cast anything in one that you want. And without giving too much away, the Duke, John Wayne, is a character in the graphic novel.
That's right. I keep forgetting about it. I remember that now.
He is kind of Jesse's spirit guide.
Yeah, imaginary friend, kind of.
Yeah. This was not done at least not in season, and we're discussing season 1.
Pretty sure it didn't get done in season 2 either.
Limitations of that. Do you think that that is an active choice just because you would have to have somebody portraying a dead real person?
It's not that big a deal because we have actors playing other real people all the time. I don't think it's that big a deal. I really don't know who you would get.
Right?
Just looking at that resume, you could just put in a cowboy instead of making it actually John Wayne, and then you get Sam Neill, because Sam Neill is like the epitome of cowboy. And
I actually
not Sam Neill. That's not the guy I'm thinking of. The guy from Sam Neill is in the Madness.
Yes.
What's the other guy?
Oh, you're thinking of, oh my god.
Right? Tombstone and like every
You know who's going to be pissed about that? Jen.
Oh yeah, she's going to be so upset that we forgot his name. You guys know who we're talking about. Beef, it's what's for dinner commercials. Depending on how old you are. That's something I'm going to yell at for.
Yeah. You know, you're thinking on that, because if budget's no object, I get Josh Brolin to play John Wayne.
Ooh.
Have the weathered.
Yeah, that'd be a good call.
Smokes 3 packs a day. Punches cows to get his steaks.
Right. Boy, I'm so terrible with actors until I'm actually watching a show or reading something, because obviously you can tell, because I can't even remember who the other guy was.
Sam Elliott.
Sam Elliott. I knew it was a Sam. I was close. I was halfway there.
We got it, Jen.
Sam Elliott is
the cowboy.
The cowboy. He is the archetypical epitome of cowboy. All you got to do is put him in a button-down shirt with a Stetson, and boom.
Yeah, I don't know if he could do the John Wayne voice, though. Sam Elliott has such a distinctive voice.
Yeah, that's fair.
For him to try to do the John Wayne, well, partner, that was a weird amalgamation in my head. Yeah, I don't know that would work. But I truly believe after Josh Brolin became young Tommy Lee Jones in the third Men in Black movie that Josh Brolin can be whoever Josh Brolin wants to be.
That's fair. And very soon he's going to be Gurney Halleck, so...
You and your Dune fascination. A little trivia here. Series produced and 4 episodes directed by Seth Rogen.
Really?
Yep. Seth Rogen
obviously completely missed that.
Seth Rogen is directly involved with Preacher. I would imagine he is a huge fan of the comics because he is that right age group and that right level of nerd.
That really surprises me because usually you don't think, you're looking at Seth Rogen, well, nobody's stoned and nobody's...
Well, Cassidy is.
That's fair, but Cassidy is an entity unto himself. He's kind of the Klaus.
The level of violence, but it's fun violence. It is kind of in that Seth Rogen wheelhouse, because they do a lot of those kind of things. If you've ever seen This Is the End, gore, and it's fun. The best description that I've actually heard of the Preacher show is that it's kind of like a campy horror movie that is a series. Because it does have its share amount of fair, dramatic moments and things, but it is Splatterhouse.
Not quite as campy as Midnight Texas.
Oh my god, Midnight Texas. Yes. Yes. Only on for 2 seasons. If you did not see Midnight Texas and you're having a bottle of wine or a couple bottles of beer.
Yeah, that's a 2-drink minimum show.
You just want to watch something crazy and ridiculous. When you're out of episodes of Preacher and out of episodes of Lucifer.
And you're looking for something to watch that's kind of in the same vein.
It's written by the same person that did True Blood.
You're kidding.
No, not kidding. Other book series by the same person that did True Blood.
All right, well, that's a thing.
And I think they're in the same universe, because I think the main character from Midnight Texas shows up in the True Blood.
I mean, there's a lot of similar story arcs. Midnight Texas is definitely like the 2-drink minimum version of Preacher. Everything just made it less serious.
If you are familiar with the show, which is kind of how this show works, but doesn't have to be, the scene with Cassidy in a plane is pretty much what the comic is at all times.
Oh, yeah. 100%.
Which I would probably describe that as
Cassidy's introduction scene, I think, isn't it?
One of them. And it was, yeah, which may be the bloodiest 5 minutes I've ever watched in the TV show.
But total hilarity as far as blood goes.
Once again, yes. It's like, over the top. It's Tarantino-esque.
Or like shoot 'em up.
Yeah. So, final thoughts on Preacher. Are you interested in continuing and reading more?
Absolutely. I would definitely read more Preacher. It just kind of got going in my mind. It was a really fast read. The series got a little slow into season 2 and season 3. Things kind of started to drag a little bit. Still good stuff. It just wasn't moving at the pace that I really wanted it to. It's still good stuff. The graphic novel I would definitely read more of.
Awesome. I was reading this when it was coming out. I've had this graphic novel on my shelf for a very long time. I'm a big fan of Garth Ennis' stuff. He has another show coming out called The Boys, which is going to be a stay tuned, because that show is based off of a comic series that he did called The Boys. So we will probably do that season 2. Preacher is a great comic. Like I said, there are sections that are dated, mostly with the side characters in the world, because you are dealing with Texas in the late 90s, so not quite as evolved in a lot of ways as we are now. But if you're willing to look past that, the graphic novel is actually very much a pickup and get on your show.
Absolutely, 100%.
All right, that does it for us for another episode of Graphically Novel. Come in on the next episode where we will be doing Happy.
Yes. Oh my God, Happy.
You're going to find out, Jen will be with us for that episode, and you're going to basically hear how Happy, the show, and the graphic novel affected Bear in a very real way.
Oh my God.
Tune in for us then, and in the meantime, you can find us on graphicallynovel.com. You can hit us up on Twitter at graphicallynovel. You can join our Facebook group. We still have that Twitch channel. I don't know if we're going to do anything with it, but I've got it.
I'm not even sure. Am I on the Facebook group yet?
You should be.
I should check that.
You should probably check that.
Yeah.
Anyway, in the meantime, take it away, Vandello. That does it for us here at Graphically Novel. We're adding this little bumper in here to talk a little bit about Vandello, the band that did our theme song.
I still have to go see them in concert yet.
Wow.
Their music's great.
We're going to get that through. You can find them at vandelloband.com. They're one of my favorites, and they were kind enough to decide to do a little Eastern Iowa mixing of some art and help us out, and we want to make sure to promote them. So check out their single that is on YouTube. It's called Mixology 101. Really cool, jazzy song. Love it. As for us, you can find us on graphicallynovel.com. You can find us on Twitter at graphicallynovel. Remember the 2 L's. And, since this is your part,
well, sooner or later I'll get on Facebook. I mean,
we do have a Facebook group, so if you want to like us on Facebook, that would be awesome.
I still don't have a Twitter account yet either.
And as for any podcast that you listen to, there's the rate, review, subscribe, that whole sort of thing. So
yes, like us, love us.
That's why we do this. We want to be liked and loved.
Well, I mean, I am loved, but
digitally.
I like you too.
Digitally. All right, in the meantime, take it away, Vandello.